I want you to settle back in for a few weeks of reading in the book of Psalms. We have covered the first 51 chapters of the book, so we will begin this week with the 52nd chapter, reading through the 56th. You will read one chapter a day, followed by the chapter devotion this week, written by Jeannie or Jane. If you care to review any of the previous chapters, just go to the blog spot and type in the chapter that you wish in the search area. The week's read with that chapter will appear for you. And if you have not subscribed, please check out my blog at biblicalshakers.blogspot.com. Our first psalm was written about by an evil man who carried favor with King Saul by spying on David. When David learned what he had done, he turned to God for help, for God is the only one who can justly deal with our enemies. With God by his side, David compared himself to an olive tree flourishing in the house of God. Not only is an olive tree one of the most longest living trees, but a flourishing tree has even greater longevity. David trusted God's name. Psalm 53 echoes the message of Psalm 14. Compare the writings, which are very, very close. Both psalms proclaim the foolishness of atheism. People who say there is no God to cover their sin, or they have an excuse to continue in sin, or to ignore the judge to avoid the judgment. Fools are people who reject God. The only one who can save them is God himself. Remember, God will have the last word. Many of David's psalms follow the pattern as found in the 54th chapter. There is a transition from prayer to praise. David was not afraid to come to God and express his true feelings and needs. Thus, his spirit was lifted, and he praised God, his helper, his protector, and friend. Wait with expectation, then praise the Lord. Troubles around David, terrors within him, and treachery next to him combined to make David wish he could get away from it all. We find this in chapter 55, which was most likely written during the time of Absalom's rebellion and Ahithophel's betrayal. When you call out to the Lord and cast your burdens on him, he enables you to overcome. Our prayers are effective against the overwhelming evil in the world. Our final chapter read was probably written when David was fleeing from Saul to the Philistine territory. Even in our deepest sorrow, God cares. Jesus reminded us further of how much God understands us. Often we waver between faith and fear. When you feel so discouraged that you are sure no one understands, remember that God sees where you are. God knows how you feel, and God hears when you call. The Lord enables each of us. Psalms is a comforting book. I hope you enjoyed this week's read. And next week, another 5 chapters in the book of Psalms. Remember, you'll have to check in because Biblical Shakers makes reading the Bible way more enjoyable for you. And I pray the Lord will put a hunger on your heart.